On the night their daughter first inhaled the world, he exhaled his vows and vanished. 20 years later, guilt-heavy knuckles drummed the door, he bolted. Begging for a key, he melted. Secrets have fermented in that absence, sweet like memory, volatile. Like moonshine. What does a woman offer the ghost who made her a mother and a martyr in the same breath? Lean closer. Forgiveness here is a blade that glitters brighter than revenge. The house remembers more than its owner, breathing each leftover lullaby. Its breathing teaches the walls to wait. Lena stood in the rented kitchen before dawn, arms folded so tight her elbows gated her ribs. The fridge motor sighed, the only voice since Sam's departure 5 years ago. Steam rose from a chipped mug, second-hand china, hairline cracks veining the white like quiet lightning. Lipstick, the color of bruised roses, clung to the rim. Though she had not worn any since labor became memory, silence had a thickness. She'd learned to stretch like dough across a counter. Nights after Mina's birth, she hummed into that silence, shaping lullabies from ache until the infant slept. Tonight the child lay behind a bedroom door, nightlight casting aquarium blues. Yet Lena lingered outside as if guarding an empty cradle. On the table, the half-torn photograph waited. Sam's tilted grin, collar open, cigarette smudging the border. Her own face ripped away the evening the will arrived. A lawyer's envelope had declared everything, house, savings, even the vinyls from their first road trip, belonged to another daughter Lena had never met. Under the photo she kept that envelope, folded until the creases felt like bone. She ran her thumb along its edge, hearing again the door slam over the newborn's first cry. 2 sounds grafted into one wound. A drip landed on the tabletop. Tears arrived these days the way mail used to, unexpected, unwanted, always addressed. To someone in the past. She wiped the wood with her sleeve, then touched the locket beneath her sweater. Dull silver, her mother's. Inside, Mina's hospital bracelet, letters faded to ghosts. She opened it. Metal smelled of old perfume, aldehydes. Lingering like a choir in rehearsal. Could forgotten languages still guard a child? Footsteps. Mina, 6, patted in, hair tangled as seaweed. She climbed into Lena's lap without asking, warmth startling. Children burned with trust. She reached for the photograph, tracing the jagged edge where her mother's face had been. Tell me the story about the hall, she whispered, voice milky with half-dream. Which hall, love? The one where echoes sleep. Ah, the abandoned concert hall, Lena's bedtime invention from a night when bills shouted louder than comfort. She exhaled. It was built before microphones, she began, smoothing Mina's hair. People said if you breathed too loudly, the chandeliers would ripple with applause. When the city lost its voice, the hall closed. Only the echoes stayed, rocking themselves like babies. Waiting for who? For someone brave enough to clap. Mina clapped once, small, polite, and the sound cracked against cabinets. They laughed, a bright hiccup slicing stale air. When it faded, Mina pointed at the envelope. Is that the letter from the hall? No, sweetheart. Will we go there? Someday, Lena lied. She carried the child back to bed, stepping over the floorboard that squealed like gossip, kissed the scar on Mina's chin, earned chasing pigeons, and lingered until breath evened. Back in the kitchen, Lena's phone displayed a single voicemail. Sam's recorded greeting still answered, leave a message. Tonight she dialed, ringtone like memory rung out. Click, his warmth filled her ear. When the tone beeped, she inhaled silence, then hung up. The machine would archive nothing. She rinsed the mug. Lipstick bled into water. On the counter lay a folded receipt. Today's date, a law firm 2 blocks from Mina's school. Item, consultation estate. Contestation. She'd hidden it beneath a dish towel, as if ink could smell fear. At the attorney's, she had pretended to study the oil painting behind his desk, a schooner tilted against a violent sea. The lawyer kept saying statutory share and elective estate, as though money were a wind you could redirect if you learned its angles. Lena had nodded, but saw only the schooner cracking, the mast snap like a wishbone. When the consultation ended, she rode the elevator alone, clutching pamphlets that smelled of copier toner and defeat. She unfolded the receipt now. Could she pry open Sam's life, disturb his new family, claim what was promised? Her lungs tasted iron. High on the shelf rested a tin box with chrysanthemums. Inside, notes, invoices, the ultrasound of Nina's curled fist. She pulled the stool, sifted, and found the will's last page. Sam's hurried signature. In the margin a doodle, a star he once drew on her wrist during a picnic. That star undid her. She pressed the paper to her cheek, felt only pulp. Flashback rose unbidden. St. Agnes maternity ward. Mina swaddled like a petition against the world's draft. Sam had carried the car seat awkwardly, humming a jazz riff to hide terror. In the elevator he'd kissed Lena's damp forehead and promised, "We build the hall, you and me, every heartbeat a drum." She had believed him so completely it felt architectural. Even now she sensed the scaffolding of that faith buckle, beams groaning in memory's dust. Lightning flickered. Summer storms rolled through the city like slow hunters. The first rumble rattled the pane. Lena pictured Mina center stage, clapping. Her heart lurched. Rain began. She opened the back door. Asphalt smell rose, wet tar, childhood. The day her own father left under identical clouds. She remembered her mother at the sink, spine a straight line of grief, washing the cup no one else would use. Patterns, echoing. She stroked her back, feeling another echo forming in Mina, unless she broke the chain. She looked at the receipt. A choice evenly balanced between dignity and exhaustion. Humidity curled the photograph into a question mark. From a drawer she found the missing half, her own face mid-laughter. She aligned the halves, taped them. The seams shone like scar tissue. Sam's smile met her eyes. They looked like strangers who almost touched. The hallway remained empty but brimmed with ghosts of promises. She shook them off and picked a thrift store postcard of the concert hall, chandeliers blurred by time. She wrote without greeting, "You left before the echoes settled. They've started naming themselves after us." Mina claps and they bow. "I refuse the encore they demand." She paused, added, "I'll be there when the doors reopen, whether you stand beside me or before me. No address." She slid the card into the envelope with the will, sealing past and future under one flap. Then she took the lighter kept for birthday candles. Flame-kissed paper. Ink curled into smoke until only a black crescent remained. She dropped it in the sink, water hissing. Burnt scent mingled with rain. The house felt suddenly wider, walls exhaling. From Mina's room came a small clap once, then again. Lena smiled, tears saltier for their softness. She walked to the doorway, leaning against the frame. Mina sat upright, palms ready. Lena raised her own hands and clapped. The sound traveled through the corridor, slipped under doors, and settled in the living room where Sam's guitar once leaned. It hovered, uncertain, then lay across the hush like folded wings. The fridge motor paused. Rain thinned to a whisper. Their joined applause spun through rooms, unable to escape, so it nested in the house, rocking itself to sleep. Lightning etched their shadows on the wall, two figures, one tall, one becoming. When the light withdrew, the silhouettes lingered in Lena's mind, outlines stitched with thunder's thread, waiting for dawn to decide who would step out of them first. The boiler clicked off and the apartment curled into a silence thick as quilt batting. Nora, once the loudest laugh at college parties, now a curator of quiet, stood at the wobbling card table and weighed envelopes in her palm. Heavy meant eviction. Light meant a plea. Dawn seeped through the window, too thin too. Warm the frost mosaic her daughter had breathed onto the glass before school yesterday. Mira had traced a circle, then a triangle inside her father's shoulders, his stubborn chin pressing tiny fingerprints until the pain squeaked. Outside, a siren unfurled and was swallowed by snow. Nora slid her thumb beneath the fattest envelope. Late fee, interest. Friendly reminder that kindness expired. She let it fall onto the pile she called the avalanche and tipped her coffee cup upside down. Lipstick last year's shade. Courage Rose painted a ghost on the rim, even though she had not worn makeup since Caleb walked away. The smear felt accusatory, as though color itself required confidence she no longer leased. She rinsed the cup. But the stain clung. Some things refused to wash away. Others vanished too easily. One husband, 2 paychecks, the braid of laughter they once shared over burnt popcorn. Bills multiplied in their place. She dried her hands on yesterday's newspaper and reached for her coat. The second shift at the nursing home started in 43 minutes. The first had ended 3 hours ago. Sleep had become an indulgence, like oranges, something to save for holidays. Mira's room was a converted closet the landlord called a bonus nook. Nora eased the door open. The child slept curled around a music box shaped like a carriage. Paint. Flaked, but when wound it still chimed the lullaby Caleb had whistled between contractions. Mira's hand clutched a tarnished locket Nora's mother had given her inside. An ultrasound smudge labeled Miracle. Nora kissed the air above them and whispered a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. In the hallway she brushed the framed mirror. A narrow scar crossed her cheekbone, silver in the dim. Caleb's farewell, his keys hurled when she barred the door. Scars were currency here. Show too many and the world assumed you were already spent. Mrs. Delgado cracked her door. Night shift again? Double, Nora answered. The old woman pressed a foil-wrapped parcel into her gloved hand. Pandulce, eat while it's warm. Pity, sugared and steaming. Pride rose, but she swallowed. Gracias. She would share with Mira tomorrow. Pretending a co-worker had leftovers. Dignity cost exact change. Nora carried only larger bills of shame. Snow sobbed beneath her boots as she hurried to the station. Midnight trains groaned overhead, iron voices arguing with the wind. She imagined their cargo. Other mothers' regrets shipped north, fathers folded between pallets. Street lamps cast halos around each flake. Entire galaxies died on her coat. The wind carried cinders of distant fireworks, leftovers from someone else's celebration, drifting like questions with nowhere to land. She hugged herself and waited beside a billboard advertising life insurance. A smiling family suspended in glossy forever. On the ride she dozed. Dreams braided the click-clack rhythm into Caleb's departing footsteps until brakes shrieked. Across the aisle, a teenage boy sketched tattoos on his own arm, ink bleeding like a dare. Survival employed different architects. At Westbridge Care, bleach greeted her like a sermon. She clocked in, pinned on her badge Nora, and stepped into the hush of those nearing the last silence. Mrs. Kovacs gripped her hand, eyes wild. Where's my baby? Nora stroked the woman's temple, whispering the line she told herself. On the way. When the patient slept, she breathed in a mixture of chloroform and wilted carnations. During break, she leaned beside a vending machine that refused her dollar until she smoothed the wrinkles. Lesson noted. Inside, a single sandwich sagged, edges gray. She thought of the Pandulce cooling in her locker and almost wept for cinnamon at 3 a.m. Phone buzz. A text from Caleb, first in months. Income tax forms need your signature. As if money were the only tether left. She typed, mail them, I'm working. He answered, you always are. The words punctured, but she let the wound bleed unseen. Snow thickened. On her walk back to the train, lamps burned dimmer, whole constellations falling onto her coat. She pressed the foil packet in her pocket, still warm. Maybe hope, like bread, could be reheated. The apartment smelled of radiator dust and resolve. Mira sat at the kitchen window, pajamas glowing blue in the half-light, drawing new shapes in the frost. This time a rectangle with a tilted roof and smoke curling. She turned, big-eyed. The trains kept your heart awake, she said. Nora knelt. Did they scare you? They sounded lonely. Mira traced Nora's scar. Like this. Nora's composure cracked. She offered the pastry. Mira tore it into 2 equal halves. Sugar left white constellations on their fingers. Will the bank take this house too? The child asked. They can't take what we build inside. Words. Tasted hollow, yet she laid them like bricks. Architecture needed blueprints no one else could see. From her coat she slipped the lipstick. Courage rose. Mira giggled when Nora drew a crooked streak, then offered her own lips. Together they faced the mirror. The color glowed against fatigue. The reflection multiplied them. A future behind each present one woman, surviving simply by standing. Knuckles rapped. Mr. Green, the landlord. Rent due yesterday. Nora wiped. The lipstick but crimson shadows stayed. She opened the door a sliver. He smelled of aftershave and final notices. Friday, Miss Halloran, he said, and walked away. The avalanche of envelopes slid from the table. Mira helped gather them. One, addressed in unfamiliar pen, had slipped under the fridge. Return address, Bowman and Price Attorneys. Nora tore. It opened notice of class action against the chemical plant where Caleb once worked, and where she'd taken a temp job inhaling solvents. Potential settlement upon validation of employment records. The paper pulsed between her fingers, a small, frightened animal she might yet tame. Her pulse hammered. Money wearing the mask of justice. She could forge Caleb's stub, claim double, pay off rent, and buy silence. Survival printed its blueprints in gray. Mira watched, sensing the pivot. Good news? Maybe. Nora folded the letter, slipped it onto the Locket chain, a promise beside a miracle. Another brick in an unseen wall. Outside, a freight train moaned. She imagined its cars filled not with regrets, but with every unpaid hour she'd stacked like timber, rolling toward some ledger in the sky. She pictured the house inside Mira's frost drawing, beams glowing, roof strong. If we stay quiet. Enough, she whispered. We'll hear it being built. Is quiet stronger than loud? The child asked. It lasts longer. Nora kissed the scar on Mira's knee, the one from riding a bike without training wheels, because Caleb never showed. Scars, bricks, lipstick, everything could be material. The radiator hissed approval. Dawn slipped clean light across the room, painting the avalanche gold. Nora stacked the bills, placed the lipstick on top like a crimson keystone, and exhaled. Across the street, sunrise ignited the church steeple. Stained glass set the snow on fire. Though the train's echo still trembled through the walls, she felt it change no longer the cadence of leaving, but the slow, deliberate tempo of something arriving, heavy, inevitable, and hers to unload when the tracks finally cooled. The apartment slept around Lena like an animal too exhausted to purr. She sat barefoot on the living room rug, listening for the small surrender that meant Mina's breathing had slid into dream. Only then did she reach beneath the sofa, tug the loose floorboard free, and expose the nest of envelopes. One glance, and her pulse miscounted. Every flap bore Sam's handwriting, slanted, unruly, alive, the only part of him not claimed by distance or the new child, whose photo had sidled onto social media. Tonight she lifted the newest letter. Postmark a week old, rain-blurred, but the S of her name still curled like a hook. Ink smelled of smoked cedar and the cologne he had dabbed on their wedding invitations. She pressed it to her cheek the way a doctor once pressed a stethoscope. To search for life. Paper carried only yesterday's heartbeat. She did not open it. She never opened them. The promise was the pain, and she was loyal to pain. A draft passed under the door, stirring a napkin on the coffee table. Lipstick courage rose. Half erased from the morning's rushed coffee blotted its corner. She considered wiping it clean. But the stain felt like a witness refusing silence, so she folded the napkin and slid it into the hollow with the letters. Even secrets deserved company. The board thudded back. In the hush that followed, she heard the locked drawer across the room begin its steady pulse. The small oak dresser had come from a thrift store, key missing, lock tarnished like an old coral. Inside lay the photocopy of Sam's will, the consultation contract from the lawyer on Maple Street, and a single bent photograph of a newborn arm Mina cradled by an unseen hand. The drawer's heartbeat was imagined, of course, but night amplified guilt until wood-developed organs. Lena rose. Her knees complained, relics of years waitressing double shifts. She crossed to the kitchenette, poured water from the kettle she never whistled. Noise attracted reckoning. Steam fogged the window. She drew a half circle in the mist, then another. Beneath it, unconsciously sketching the postal horn emblem. She erased it with her sleeve before the shape could accuse her. A scar at her wrist glimmered when she lifted the mug. That scar carried its own archive, mirror shards after Sam's last visit, shards she swept while Mina watched, the child learning how women collect evidence and label it. Housekeeping. The clock whispered 2 a.m. Behind the bedroom door, Mina murmured, "Mama." Reflex tugged Lena forward, but the voice fell back into sleep. She exhaled. The mug's rim cooled. Lipstick remained, thin as a bloodline. A memory surfaced, Sam at their first apartment, kneeling to patch a hole in the wallpaper. He had hummed Coltrane, back muscles twitching under a white t-shirt, smelling of paint and ambition. She had kissed the nape of his neck, tasting salt and primer, certain their future was a room they would finish together. That was before kindness spoiled into apology, and apology curdled into habit. The phone vibrated, a number she had saved, as maybe Freedom, the lawyer. She let it shiver to voicemail, afraid her voice might fracture into confessions the device would archive forever. Moments later, the message icon glowed. She pictured his calm baritone. "We can't proceed without your signature. Statute risks." Closing. Legal language made grief sound like plumbing issues. Fix the leak or lose the house. She carried the phone to the dresser. The locked drawer seemed to breathe, metal echo in her own restrained lungs. If she signed, she could challenge. The will, secure enough money to stay in this apartment until Mina's graduation. If she stayed silent, Sam's new family kept everything, and Sam's letters kept arriving. Each one a phantom apology she might one day believe. Lena opened the locket around her neck. On one side, her mother's high school portrait smile braced. By resignation. Opposite, a folded note Lena had written in labor. "If I don't make it, tell her my love is the ceiling." She unfolded it. Ink had bled into almost illegible blue clouds. Ceiling, shelter, architecture again. A gust rattled the window. She imagined the postman tomorrow, heavy bags slung like obligation, skipping their mailbox because she had barred delivery months ago with a handwritten request. Hold all personal letters, forwarding pending. False. Address supplied. But Sam's envelope still found her, slipped under the door by forces polite systems couldn't trace. Some grief employed its own couriers. Lena retrieved a screwdriver from the toolbox, wedged it under the drawer's brass. Face and pride. Wood groaned, then surrendered. Papers exhaled. She spread them on the rug. The will's clauses marched in black columns. The attorney's retainer agreement awaited one more initial. The photograph blinked beneath fluorescent kitchen light. Newborn skin luminous dot. She positioned Sam's latest envelope beside the photograph, as if father and daughter might negotiate. The distance between them was the width of a coffee-stained napkin. Her hand moved before her. Certainty. She slit the envelope with the screwdriver tip. Paper fibers sighed. Only 3 lines inside, written at a kitchen table she would never see. "Lena, I keep sending these because not writing feels like erasing her. If you read none, read this. The money was meant to protect you. I was afraid you'd refuse it if I named you. Forgive me backwards." Ink pooled at the G of forgive, as though the pen had hesitated on the cliff of that request. Pride shrank to something small enough to swallow. She read the letter again, slower, tasting each word like medicine with side effects. Across the room the drawer lay open, heartbeat stalled. The lawyer's voicemail waited. Sam's lines blurred where a teardrop she didn't recall shedding, smudged. The final E. She touched the wetness, found her cheeks dry. The paper was crying on its own. She folded the letter, slid it into the locket, replacing her mother's portrait. Past guarding future. Then she gathered the will and the retainer, stacked them, and pressed her thumbprint over the signature line, an inkless seal promising a tomorrow she did not yet endorse. She slipped them into the drawer and shut it. Lock! Clacked like a period. The heartbeat resumed, but slower, as if pacified. Floorboards accepted the envelopes once more. She added tonight's empty one among its siblings. Closure was a rhythm. Hide, breathe, delay. Morning's first train grumbled beyond the river, shaking cups in the cupboard. Mina's door creaked. Small footsteps padded toward the hallway. Lena wiped lipstick from the mug, leaving only a faint. Coral ghost, then placed the cup in the sink without washing it. Mina appeared, hair wild, locket glinting against pajamas. Bad dreams, she murmured. What did you see? Lena asked, lifting her onto a hip that still remembered newborn. Wait. A man knocking, but the door was glass. He couldn't come in unless we broke it. And did we? Mina shook her head. We waved instead, relief and ache tangled. Lena kissed the scar on her daughter's chin, then carried her back to bed. She pulled the quilt high, hummed a tune her own father had whistled the night he left. The melody cracked but carried the sky bruised purple behind cheap curtains. Lawyer, letters, forgiveness, all waited like unpaid rent. Lena traced circles on Mina's back until the child's breathing evened. She lingered, memorizing the precise shape of safety. Small body, steady breath, fragile architecture still holding. When she rose, dawn slipped a thin blade of light under the doorframe, illuminating the lipstick ghost on her cup, the sealed drawer, the floorboard flush and silent. She imagined every unsent reply she might write someday, pages folded into paper swans. Set free on a river no postman could trace, and felt, for the first time in months, the room inhale without flinching. Outside, a distant truck backfired like a half-hearted apology. Inside, everything held its position, waiting for the next knock that might or might not come. Then the lock at her center clicked one soft, decisive, and the echo smelled faintly of yesterday's perfume on an old coat. The evening lamps flickered like tired eyelids above the sink, and Lena rinsed pasta starch from a wooden spoon in water gone gray with history. Saturday twilight pressed against the kitchen window, bruised violet, leaking its color onto every surface. Somewhere beyond the apartments, the carnival rides at Riverfront Park were starting to light. Each bulb a small permission Mira had not asked for. She was supposed to be studying. She was somewhere else instead. Lena wiped her hands on a dish towel and listened, a mother's sonar sweeping every silence for disturbance. The apartment answered with refrigerator hum, the faint tick of the boiler, the deliberate hush of someone holding breath in the hallway. She stepped toward the living room just as the explosion came. Glass shattering, picture frame hitting floorboard. A comet, the chapter summary had promised. Here was the impact. She found Mira standing over the ruin, fists balled, chest heaving, like bellows that had finally tasted flame. At 16, she wore rage the way Lena once wore perfume, visible only when she moved, leaving a scent behind. Shards of the photo frame glittered around her sneakers. In the center lay the image they had taken on Mina's second birthday, Sam lifting her toward balloons. Lena's cropped arm visible like an unfinished sentence. Tell me, Mira said low, throat raw from whatever scream she swallowed. Tell me why he left. The question struck a wall of practiced reticence. Lena felt it ricochet, thud, ricochet again. It had been ricocheting for years inside her own ribs. He had Obligations, Lena began, voice a door caught on its chain. Obligations. Mira nearly laughed. That's the word you think I don't hear when you and Mrs. Delgado whisper. Lena glanced to the side table. Lipstick on a cold coffee mug, the color bruised rose, her morning courage abandoned before noon. She knelt, reaching for glass, but Mira kicked a shard away. It slid under the sofa, tinging like a small bell. That called all the hidden letters to attention beneath the floorboard. You're bleeding, Lena said. A slice of red brightened Mira's knuckle, startling against teenage pale. It's just proof. Mira raised a hand. Every story needs evidence. Lena fetched the first aid tin once, a cookie box painted with chrysanthemums, and dabbed peroxide while Mira stared through her. The bubble hiss sounded like soda at a party they were never invited to. He left. Lena tried again, because the promises he made grew bigger than he did. She taped a butterfly bandage across the cut, fingers trembling. Some men get small when life gets large. That's a poem, not an answer. Mira snapped. Lena opened her mouth, but memory clogged her throat. Sam slipping wedding band into pocket the night he confessed another daughter. His eyes begging her to promise what mattered was intention, not geography. The way he smelled of rain and decisions half made. Mira crouched, lifted the photo's cardboard backing. You keep his face. You keep his letters, I know you do. But you keep me in the dark. How do you know about letters? Panic sharpened Lena's whisper. There's a board that squeaks whenever you walk over it after midnight, she said. I learned the sound years ago. Secrets are loud, Mom. Lena's knees met the carpet. She felt the locked drawer across. The room started slow pulse, metal echoing her heart's a rhythmic thud. She had hidden the key in her sewing tin. Beneath bobbins of thread, she rarely touched thread the exact shade of the sky on the day Sam left. Come here. She breathed, not command but pleading. They both sat amid glittering fragments. She brushed stray slivers from Myra's jeans, as though parenting could still tidy. Mira lifted the photograph. The glassless print wavered like an exposed nerve. What if I told you, she said softly, that I don't care why he left? I care why you stayed silent. Lena tasted iron, a bite inside her cheek. Silence was my armor. Words can be used against you in court and in kitchens. Maybe I want a trial, Mira said, tears startling them both. Maybe I need someone to testify. Wind kinked through the window frame. The curtains inhaled. Lena remembered her own mother's silence when her father disappeared with an insurance agent's smile, the refusal to speak becoming a story more vicious than truth. She had sworn never to repeat that lineage. Promises sometimes traveled in circles too perfect. A flashback tugged her. Winter night. Allow your sliding a pen across mahogany. Sign here, Mrs. Holt, and we can challenge the will. Her hand shaking, refusing. The pen glistening like a dagger made of ink. She had walked away because the fee equaled 6 months' rent and pride. Survival was the cheaper architect. In the present, Mira's shoulders shook. Lena touched her scarred wrist, Sam's thrown keys, and realized her daughter had inherited not thunder but the storm map, the sense of pressure before lightning. She reached for the locket at Mira's throat, opened it. Ultrasound smudge still labeled miracle. Opposite an empty oval where Lena meant to place a current photo but never printed one. The vacancy accused them both. He wrote every month. Lena whispered, sometimes a check, sometimes apologies. They smelled like cedar and excuses. I thought if I hid them he would fade and you'd never measure yourself against his absence. And if I measured myself against your silence instead? Mira asked. Glass crackled as Lena shifted, the pieces echoing with tiny screams. She remembered folding napkin after napkin at the diner, each crease another unsent reply. I didn't want his betrayal to become your origin story, she said, so I made my own. Which betrayal was that? My silence, Lena admitted. The word cold and clean. Mira's face softened. the way clouds loosen after insisting on storm all afternoon. She picked up the frame's wooden edge, studying the place where glass had given up. Wood survives what glass cannot, she mused Sam's phrasing. Genetic. Or learned. Lena stood, walked to the sewing tin atop the dresser. Thread spools rattled like nervous teeth until her fingers found the brass key. She returned and opened her palm. The key lay there, small as a choice you postpone until it rules you. This unlocks the drawer, she said. Inside is everything: letters, legal papers, truths with sharp edges. What happens if I open it? Mira asked. Then we decide. Together what remains locked. Mira took the key. It clicked against her healing bandage, a fragile percussion. She did not rise. Instead, she pressed the metal into her other palm, staring at the indents it left in teenage skin. Lena crouched again, eye level with the storm she birthed. Rage is a tool, she said. I used it once to build walls. Maybe you can use it to build doors. They looked at the scattered glass. Each shard reflected a sliver of their faces. Mother without answers, daughter without glass. A new picture, fragmented but shared. Mira inhaled. I want to see the letters. When you're ready, Lena said. They're patient assassins. They'll wait. Mira slid the key into her jeans pocket. The motion sounded like the turning of a new hinge. Lena began sweeping the shards into a dustpan. Mira joined, both women working without gloves, trusting each other to warn of danger. Occasional pricks drew beads of red, tiny confirmations they were flesh, not porcelain. They emptied the pieces into the trash, the clatter like distant applause. When the floor was clear, Lena retrieved the lipstick from the side table, uncapped it, and handed it over. Mira hesitated, then pressed a slow streak across her mouth-bruised rose, bright against youthful defiance. She offered the tube back, but Lena shook her head. Keep it. Color should run in the family. Mira smiled almost, the corners learning a new geometry. She went to her room, leaving the door half open, hinge squealing the first line of a conversation yet to be written. Lena turned off the lamps one by one. In the living room, the frame rested empty on the coffee table, waiting for replacement. Glass. Through its void, the carpet showed a faint stain of wine spilled years ago when laughter had been plentiful. She touched the rim. A splinter lodged beneath her nail, a reminder that even wood remembers. Impact. Night settled. From Mira's room came the soft click of the drawer key entering its lock. Then nothing, no opening, no rustle of papers, only the weight of possibility perched on a threshold. Lena leaned against the wall, listening to the silence she had once weaponized becoming. Under her daughter's custody, something closer to choice. The quiet that followed smelled faintly of cedar and wet ink, the scent of a future still sealed. Pawnshop door, side open, as though it too had second thoughts. Lena slipped inside, letting the bell's dull clang fade before she exhaled. Fluorescent tubes buzzed above scratched glass cases, their light the shade of old milk, too thin to comfort, too thick to ignore. Dust floated like stalled snowfall. She rubbed the scar on her wrist, a nervous mantra, then moved toward the jewelry counter where small histories were priced by the gram. There it was, her wedding ring, unmistakable even among a dozen yellow bands. The jeweler had tagged it $20, 14K, worn. Worn was generous. The inner curve still bore the letters S3L, carved with a safety pin in a car parked under freshman year street lamps. She remembered Sam's grin that night, all reckless certainty. The way he'd said, cheap engraving, lifetime warranty. Courage had tasted like winter air and cheap bourbon. Vows had sounded like future tense with no commas. Now the ring sat under fingerprint-smudged glass, lit by chilled fluorescence instead of moon. $20 less than yesterday's groceries, less than 1 hour of the lawyer's time, less than the lipstick she'd stopped buying because color felt dishonest. She leaned closer, breath frosting the counter, and the years folded. Flash. Sam spinning her beneath fairy lights at the Riverside Carnival, her braid whipping like a flag of surrender. Flash, both of them carving initials into a park bench, sap beating bright as champagne. FLASH, the morning he left, door slam aligned with Mina's alarm clock. 30 seconds in which a family collapsed but the coffee never cooled. Need help? Ma'am, the clerk appeared, college kid in a metallic t-shirt. Face bored but polite. I'm just looking, she said. Voice too soft. Widow quiet. The kid nodded, returned to scrolling his phone. Lena allowed the hush to thicken. She saw her reflection in the glass. Shadowed eyes, hair pulled into a knot that apologized for taking space. Widow indeed. The lie drifted across her mind like a rescue boat, merciful, plausible, available dot behind. Her, a woman coughed. Lena straightened as the stranger gray coat, umbrella dripping peered over her shoulder. Beautiful piece, the woman murmured. Planning to buy it back? The wording startled. Had it registered on her face that the gold belonged to her skin? Just window shopping, Lena lied. The woman's gaze softened. I lost my husband 2 summers ago. Pawnshops are where grief bargains with memory. Sometimes we lose twice, once when they leave, again when we can't buy what's left. She touched Lena's forearm, brief as a bird landing. I hope you get it back. The widow narrative slid into place, warm and terrible. Lena found herself nodding, lips shaping thank you, though the syllables tasted of rust. The stranger. Moved on, umbrella tapping cases, rain rehearsing applause indoors. She imagined telling the truth. He is alive. Leaves 30 miles outside the city with another daughter. Sends letters I don't open and money I don't cash. He pawned this ring when the market dipped. Maybe he needed gas, maybe formula for the baby who replaced the promises he used to. Feed here. Truth felt carnivorous. The widow lie felt almost gentle. Lena's fingertips brushed the glass, aligning with the ring as though measuring diameter against regret. She pictured slipping it on again. Would flesh remember or recoil? The imprint might still live on her finger, hidden like attic dust in diamond-shaped webs. She stepped back. In her purse, a folded eviction notice rustled. The lawyer's card, with its silent telephone number. A lipstick tube, courage, rose empty, cap cracked, carried for its ghost. And the silver heart-shaped locket that held Mina's first lost tooth and Sam's first apology. Both small, both irreversible. The clerk looked up. You sure about just looking? Half price on Fridays. It's Thursday, she answered. Shrugged. Tomorrow comes fast. Tomorrow, rent due. Mina's art club fee, the retainer she'd never signed. $20 suddenly swung between survival and sentiment. She closed her eyes. Inside them, park bench. Sam laughed beneath street lamp. Snow, carving again, promising always. The memory blurred, then updated. Pawnshop. Sam shrugging, handing the ring across a counter for enough cash to buy new promises elsewhere. When she opened her eyes, the fluorescence sharpened. Greens and yellows in the glass cases hardened into sickly stripes, turning every object into evidence. Watches without owners accused her of wasted seconds. Trumpets without players mourned songs unsung. She reached into her purse, found the lipstick, uncapped it. Nothing left but a blunt wax. Nub. She pressed it to her lips anyway, drawing color from absence. The clerk noticed, eyebrows raised, but said nothing. An internal ledger tallied costs. The will uncontested, worth thousands withheld from them. The letter's unread weight measured in insomnia. The ring here, $20. 20 could buy 3 bus passes, 1 grocery sack, or the illusion that some vows could be repossessed. She felt shame swell, how small love became under fluorescent appraisal. Then resolve rose, slower but heavier. She would buy it, not to wear, but to disarm it. To keep Mina from someday trolling pawnshops for family relics. To deny Sam the chance to reclaim it and gift it to another bride. Her hand slipped into her coat pocket, closed around folded bill stubs from double shifts. $23.40. Rent would absorb the change invisibly. She unfolded the money, smoothing creases like bandages over an old wound. "Actually," she told the clerk, "I'm ready." He unlocked the case, set the ring on. Black velvet. Up close it looked smaller. She wondered if promises shrank in captivity, like fish in a tank. The metal held faint scratches, years of steering wheels, dish soap. Late-night doors opened for feverish children. The clerk wrapped it in tissue. "Need a bag?" "Pocket's fine," she said, sliding the ring, tissue and all, beside the locket. Two artifacts banging like distant church bells. Receipt printed, thin and final. $20.00 cash. Her signature Lena Holt's looped across it. The pen's cheap ink smeared, leaving a comma-shaped bruise. She tucked the slip into her wallet behind the lawyer's card. Bowman and Price. Another dormant key. On impulse, she asked, "Do you keep a record of who pawns what?" The kid shrugged. "Only serial numbers on electronics, rings, just weight and carats." So Sam's name was absent, ghosted like he preferred. She thanked the clerk and pushed outside. Rain greeted her, a percussion of soft hands. It struck awnings and puddles, a rehearsal of applause for choices unmade, or maybe a warning that every audience leaves eventually. She stood under the pawn shops. Neon pawn king sign letters flickering, K losing current, and leaned against brick damp with city sweat. The stranger in the gray coat waited at the bus stop, umbrella useless now that wind drove rain sideways. She met Lena's gaze, offered a sad smile, the sisterhood of supposed widows. Lena almost corrected her. The truth rose, tasted of glass dust and peroxide, then settled. Mercy sometimes wore disguise. Lies could be wool against a storm. She nodded back. Traffic splashed. In the oily mirror of a puddle, the neon king fractured into kin family without the G that grounded it. Lena watched the letters distort then. Stepped away before her reflection rippled into illegible. She walked, hand in pocket, feeling ring edges through tissue. Each step sounded like a question. Keep, return, discard, keep. Outside a bakery she paused. Warm yeast scent twined with rain. Tugging childhood forward mother, dividing bread with careful fingers, whispering, "Enough." She could pawn the ring again tomorrow for 15, buy groceries. The idea flickered, then dimmed. Some circles should remain closed. Passing an alley, she spotted a rusted pipe jutting from brick. On the pipe somebody had carved initials with a penknife, S3L, already half erased by rust, yet still legible. She touched the carving, water cold on her fingertip, and felt no sting, only distance. Back home the apartment was silent, except for the steady drawbeat across the room. Mira studied at the table, headphones on, highlighter glowing. Lena entered quietly, but Mira looked up, eyes flicking to Lena's pocket. Teenagers possess sonar too. "What did you buy?" She asked. "Something small," Lena said. She placed the ring on the table, tissue unfurling like a pale petal. Mira removed her headphones. Silence deepened, thickened, a living organism between them. Is that? It was. Lena sat, palms open. Rain drummed the windows, forgiving. Walls for still standing. She pushed the ring forward. "Hold it if you want," Mira did, turning metal in blue light. "It's lighter than I thought." "Gold hollowed by years," Lena said. "Are we keeping it? We're deciding." Mira's gaze lingered on the engraving. She looked older suddenly, as though choices added age faster than birthdays. "What does it cost to forget?" she asked. "More than 20, Lena answered. Mira slid the ring back. "Let's save for something new, not buy back what broke." She closed Lena's fingers over it, gentle but firm. Outside, rain eased into mist, a whisper after applause. Lena pocketed the ring and felt its circle press a promise into her palm. No longer vow, not yet relic, simply wait. Somewhere a park bench still held carved letters. Somewhere a will still waited. Somewhere choices rehearsed like distant thunder. Here, in this room, two women listened, and the pawnbroker's price tag, already damp against her skin, began to blur into unreadable ink, as though value itself were washing away. The hallway breathed like a lung too weary to fill. At 4:30 a.m., the hour when trains held their breath beneath the city, Mira sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, blue phone guts scattered around her like metallic petals. She had found the relic in a shoebox behind Lena's winter coats, the flip phone. Sam abandoned when touch screens became cheaper than apologies. Battery dead, but memory chip intact. Technology kept secrets longer than people. A borrowed toolkit, 2 tutorial videos, and her own stubborn pulse had pried it open. Now the screen glowed a wounded green. Menu, tools, voice notes. 17. Files, she scrolled, thumb trembling. Saw timestamps spanning every month after the divorce, each labeled draft unsent. She plugged in earbuds, held only the right bud to her ear. The left channel hung loose for morning ghosts. One click and her father's breath filled the tiny speaker. Static, then the familiar chord of his throat clearing. The first file was only 3 words. Can't do this. The second, I miss. Nothing. After that, as though he ran out of bravery mid-sentence. She skipped forward until a date marked for her 13th birthday. 0709 voice memo #17. She hit play. Hey Mira, it's your dad. I'm recording this because I'm weak when it matters and brave when it's safe. Your mom doesn't answer, and stamps feel heavier than they should, so this will sit here until I grow spine. I was weak. That's the sentence I keep hiding behind other sentences. I was weak when your mom went into labor, when the bills stacked. Higher than your crib, when I met somebody who needed less. Cowardice looks like preference when you squint. I told myself you'd be better without my unfinish. The audio ended with a shaky exhale and the clack of the phone closing. Mira sat motionless, pulse in her teeth. The truth arrived in her throat, tasted of pennies. Through the wall, the refrigerator rattled awake. Dawn had begun unsheathing light, a thin knife under the curtains. She unplugged the earbud, replaced the back cover, snapped the phone shut. It felt warm, furtive, beating like a second heart against her palm. Lena's bedroom door creaked. Footsteps soft, cautious moved toward the kitchen. Mira stood quickly, hiding the phone in her hoodie pocket, but guilt blinked neon across her face. Lena entered wearing Sam's old concert t-shirt, sleeves cut to ribbons for summer heat. She paused, reading the air. Couldn't sleep? Studying. Mira's voice wobbled. Lena noticed the open toolkit, the faint glow on the carpet. Shadows spoke before children did. She poured water into the kettle, the scar at her wrist catching silver from a street lamp. Tea? Mira nodded, suddenly 7 again, craving maternal sugar. She watched her mother's movements economy honed by years of shift work. Spoon. Tapped ceramic, kettle side. Cupboard clapped, a choreography Mira could conduct blindfolded. Yet today, each motion felt like an alibi rehearsed. Sun inched higher, turning cabinet doors into interrogation lamps. Mira swallowed. I found Dad's old phone. Lena's hand faltered, porcelain teetered. She steadied it, back still turned. Where? In the coat closet. Heat dashed Mira's cheeks. It has recordings, voice memos. Lena set 2. Mugs on the table, one bearing a lipstick ghost from last night bruised rose, faint but defiant. She sat opposite Mira, eyes riverstone calm. You listened. Mira slid the device onto the table like contraband. Number 17. She clicked play, speaker on low. Sam's hesitant breath filled the kitchen, mingling with kettle steam. Each word rippled through chipped tiles, reached the locked drawer whose heartbeat quickened across the room. Lena kept her gaze on the ring she no longer wore, A faint tan line encircling skin. When the memo finished, silence stretched, taut as laundry line before the storm. Mira broke first. He called himself weak. But he says he left because you needed someone stronger. Is that love? Lena's lips parted, closed. She lifted her mug, steam-fogged lashes. Sometimes love is cowardice with good posture. But he says he loves me. You are easy to love, Lena said, voice steady. But loving someone is not the same as staying. Mira gripped the phone, thumb against hinge. I want to send the file to him. Make him hear himself. Sound can be a weapon, Lena warned. It cuts both directions. I'm tired of cuts we pretend aren't bleeding. Mira's eyes shone fierce. She stood, pacing. He hides behind silence. We hide behind courtesy. I want a confrontation loud enough to leave bruises. Outside, garbage trucks slammed lids, metal applause. Inside, tea cooled. Lena studied. Her daughter saw a reflection of 16-year-old self, demanding the world stay whole. Memory. A younger Lena phoning her own vanished father, letting the line ring, praying the unanswered call would at least ruin his night. Hope weaponized. She rose, opened the locket around her neck. Inside, folded micropaper, a sliver of Sam's first apology. She placed it beside the phone. I kept this fragment because full letters were too heavy. Weight breaks shelves. Her fingers trembled. The lipstick ghost on the mug trembled too, an afterimage of every withheld confession. Mira picked up the locket fragment. Did you believe him? I believed he wanted to believe himself, Lena answered. She reached, stopped short of touching Mira's arm. Pain matures differently in each body. Yours is still fire. Mine became ash. Then let it reignite. Mira's voice cracked. Help me send it. Wind rattled the window. Lena pictured Sam's breakfast table in another town, new wife pouring coffee while his phone chirped. Their daughter half-sister unknown asking about algebra. The memo arriving, slicing domestic hush like a thrown key. The temptation glowed, electric. Yet another image surfaced. Mina in future years, voice trembling across a phone line, repeating. Cycles. Lena inhaled tea steam, searching its swirl for guidance. Revenge and closure were the same perfume, she said at last. Hard to tell until the bottle's empty. Mira's shoulders sagged. She set the phone down, frustration outing as tears. Then what do we do? Lena touched the scar on her wrist, pulse counting backward. We listen again. She pressed. Play, this time placing the phone between them. Sam's confession filled the kitchen. Fooler now. New harmonics in daylight. A catch in his voice when he said crib. The clatter distant. Maybe a bottle, maybe his resolve falling. When it ended, Lena said, now breathe. They did. Air tasted like rain before it lands, metallic promise. Again. She played it thrice until the words dulled, exposing motives beneath melody. Sam's apology began to sound smaller than the room. By the fourth listen, Mira's jaw unclenched. Lena clicked stop. Sound is powerful, but repetition can rob it of teeth. We decide how sharp it stays. Mira wiped her face, nodding slowly. You're saying, defang it before we wield it. Or decide we don't need its bite. Lena reached across, palm open. Mira surrendered the device. Lena removed the SIM, snapped it clean. The crack was soft, final. She handed the empty shell back. Weapon neutralized. Now choice is ours again, not his. Mira stared at the broken chip. Relief mingled with loss. Will I regret this? I still regret breathing some days, Lena said. Regret is a house with many rooms. We choose which ones we sleep in. Steam rose ephemeral, unrecorded. She rinsed the spoon, listening to the faucet debate cold and hot. Water flashed copper in the dawn stripe, reminding Mira of pennies on railroad tracks they once flattened together. Promises hammered thin by weight they never saw coming. The memory flickered, surprising them both. Proof that even good days had survived the wreck. What will you do with the fragment? Mira asked. Lena folded it twice, slid it under her mug until tea stain bled through. Let it blur. Ink can drown. Mira managed a small laugh. You always turn trauma into art. Survival into collage, Lena corrected. She stood, poured fresh hot water over cold tea leaves. Steam rose higher this time, a translucent exhale nobody would replay. In the hallway mirror, the two of them appeared side by side, silhouettes edged by gold. Mother and daughter sharing the same tired tilt of shoulders, the same stubborn lift of chin. They studied their reflection not like a portrait, but a blueprint, lines that could still be revised. Beams ready for reinforcement. Outside, the mail truck halted. A new envelope scratched through the slot, thudded on hardwood. Ghosts punctual. As ever, the women looked at the closed front door, then back at each other. No one moved to retrieve it. Mira spoke first. We could start our own memos. Build a library louder than his half-truths. Lena smiled with something like sunrise. Voice memo number 1. Strength is a plural word. She handed Mira the unused earbud. They sat side by side, recording nothing, letting Kettle hiss provide a backing track, letting silence debut as co-author. The audio of absence wrote itself in their sensed breathing. And in that quiet, the broken sim discarded next to the lipstick-stained mug cooled to a useless scrap, its secrets finally smaller. Then the room, the refrigerator's hum was the first gavel. At 5:30, dawn only a pale rumor. Lena spread manila folders over the kitchen table, the way paramedics fan instruments before a necessary wound. The bulb above flickered, a jaundiced courtroom light, turning each unpaid bill into testimony. She placed the teacup at the edge like a silent bailiff, steam already thinning. Inside the folders, tuition due notices stamped final, a printout of Mira's straight-a transcript, copies of the will Sam rewrote without her, and the blank petition. For sole custody she'd downloaded at 2 a.m., when courage ran cheaper than sleep. She uncapped a blue pen, its bite sharp, and wrote the first letter of her name as if it were an indictment. Mira padded in, wearing socks thinned by growth spurts. She paused at the threshold, reading paper silhouettes the way some children read. Constellations. Trial starting early? She asked, voice rough with unbrushed dreams. Lena pressed the pen flat. Couldn't wait. Mira filled the kettle. The clank of faucet echoed courtroom acoustics. Lemon disinfectant lingered from yesterday's scrub, judicial, cleansing, and accusatory at once. What's the charge today? She said, sliding into the opposite chair. Neglect, Lena answered. His. She pushed the form forward. Mira scanned. The language looked medieval beside her chipped nail polish. He hasn't claimed rights in years. Which means a judge will sign. The lipstick ghost courage rose floated faint on Lena's mug. An old oath watching new oaths formed. Mira lifted a tuition letter. This won't pay itself if he loses custody. He already pays nothing. Lena unfolded an unpaid orthodontics receipt. We can garnish wages, if he has wages. Mira's tone sharpened. Mom, is this about money or a verdict? About not asking permission ever again. Lena shuffled the memos they'd transcribed Sam's unsent apologies. Exhibit A through Q, cowardice now notarized. Mira sipped cooling tea. Then why does this feel like begging another man in a robe to validate us? The question slipped beneath armor, found soft places unemployment forms hadn't pierced. Lena touched the locket at her throat, silver warm against pulse. Because laws outlive anger. Anger built this kitchen, Mira whispered, gesturing at the tile Lena had laid alone, each square an act of fury turned craft. Maybe it's enough. A diesel engine coughed outside. They both looked. A white delivery truck idled curbside, Samuel HOLT Logistics, stenciled in flaking blue surname minus them. The driver checked a clipboard, unaware of the tremor he'd parked upon. Mira exhaled laughter that wasn't laughter. The universe serves subpoenas too. Lena's stomach contracted, as though the vehicle were an X-ray exposing unfinished organs. She turned back to the paper, pointed at the signature line. "We filed today." "Cross-examination," Mira declared, folding her arms. "State your motive." Memories paraded. Hospital triage demanding father's insurance while a nurse avoided her eyes. Christmas lights blinking over 2 plates instead of 3. A collections notice for Sam's forgotten debt, stapled to their door. But what emerged was smaller. "I'm tired." "Tired turns into signatures?" Mira asked. "Tired turns into boundaries." Tea cooled, justice delayed. Mira rose, pacing over grout like witness box edges. "If you do this, do it for protection, not punishment. Both can coexist. Then be honest." Her palm thudded the form. "Write that." Lena's pen hovered. She envisioned a judge, gavel splitting air, Sam across the aisle feigning comprehension. The statement read, "In best interest of minor child," so polite it trembled. She struck. "Out minor, wrote my daughter." Felt the sentence breathe. The truck engine died. Silence thickened with diesel ghost and lemon cleaner. Footsteps approached, the driver delivering to another door. Lena's pulse misheard them as Sam's. She inhaled. Flashback, freshman year. Park bench engraving, his laugh promising always. Flash forward, ring in pawnshop case, priced lower. Then dignity. Time itself entered evidence. She flipped to the final page. Petitioner's declaration. Space for narrative. Lena began. "He left when the doctor discharged us, citing overwhelm. He returns in checks that bounce and words that don't." Handshaking. She paused. Mira laid a scarred finger on the pen. "Let me." She wrote. "Respondent's absence is not a gap, but a pattern. We are applying mortar, not revenge." The words looked steadier than Lena felt. A distant rooster cried alarm clock for people who still believed in mornings. Mira returned to her seat, eyes bright. "If the judge asks why now?" "Because statutes run out," Lena said. "Fear ferments," Mira countered, tracing grout with her nail. "You once told me silence saved you." "Promise it won't cage us," Lena swallowed. "The lawyers." Waiting room flickered in memory. Magazines about yachts. Water cooler murmuring. Her reflection in glass doors. An apparition rehearsing retreat. "Silence was bunker, not home," she said. "Today we move out." Wind rattled the window. A sheet of invoices slid, revealing a wrinkled church program from Mira's baptism. Sam's handwriting noting parking ticket paid. Proof once existed. Lena smoothed the crease. "People change currents like rivers," she murmured. "Maybe," Mira said, "but rivers still owe water downstream." She unscrewed the kettle whistle. No alarms today. Poured fresh boiling water into mugs. Steam swirled, painting invisible transcripts on the air. A knock startled them, neighbor wanting sugar. Trial in session. They let it go unanswered. The kettle's hiss served as closing argument. Lena signed first, letter sealing an artery. Ink bled slightly, a bruise the paper agreed to keep. Mira witnessed, her signature looping wide, fearless. They pressed the form against the kettle lid. Steam curled the edges, authenticity scented with tea. Lena gathered folders, tapped them. Square, gavel final. The truck outside coughed alive and rolled down the block, surname disappearing like a dismissed charge. Mira dumped cold tea, rinsed cups. Citrus disinfectant rose anew sharp, almost celebratory. Lena slipped the documents into a large envelope addressed court clerk, then on impulse added the empty lipstick tube, exhibit of former silence. She sealed it with her to HUMBPRINT. At the mailbox they hesitated. Mira asked, "Appeal?" Lena shook her head and let the envelope fall. Metal swallowed it with a hollow clang, echo rounding the corners of their shared history. Back upstairs, the kitchen tiles seemed different. Less battlefield, more bench awaiting a verdict already written in chest thumbs. Light spilled over grout. Lines like closing statements. Only 2 fresh mugs remained. Steam rising, evidence that heat could be renewed. Rain began, soft as jurors rising. Lena and Mira listened to it ratify their signatures. Water approving stone, and when the kettle clicked off, the house felt lighter, as if somewhere a judge had whispered "so ordered," and the decree drifted through lemon-scented air, folding itself neatly between mother and daughter, warm as a handkerchief freshly ironed, faintly bearing the perfume of old promises finally laid to rest. The doorbell bled through. Lena's dream like a single piano note held too long. She woke, heart snagged, tasting the metallic fear that coats 3-A.M halls. Another chime thin. Insistent turned the apartment's darkness into witness. 307, the red digits moaned. She slipped from bed, bare feet learning cold tile, every board groaning her age. Halfway to the door, she thought of the envelope mailed to court yesterday, the custody petition still damp with steam. Retaliation in human form. She pressed a palm to the locked drawer as she passed, feeling its steadied throb, then reached. The PEEPHOLE. Beyond the fisheye glass stood Sam. Thinner. Yes, cheeks hollowed by debts she did not yet know. Hair flecked winter holding a grocery store bouquet of lily, sagging from long travel. Rain silvered his shoulders, street lamp halo, bruising the petals. Time telescoped, crib night to now in one sting of memory. Her wrist scar itched beneath cotton dot, she stayed silent. The hallway fluorescents hummed like indifferent jurors. He whispered, "Lena?" The word fogged the lens. Behind her, a floorboard. Sighed. Mira appeared on the stairs, oversized pajama top declaring property of nitrogen monoxide 1. She wrapped arms around the railing, judge and jury, barefoot. Lena lifted a hand stay, but the girl kept descending, 17 candles of anger lighting. Her eyes. The bell pressed again, its echo folding until the apartment seemed full of unanswered questions. Lena unhooked the chain, each click a rehearsal for regret. She opened to the guard of the safety latch, a 2-inch mercy. Sam's first word was sorry. The hallway swallowed it. Lena smelled diesel, road coffee, lily pollen. "Why are you here?" "To talk." His voice cracked, paper over flame. He lifted the bouquet like evidence. A ribbon read special, someone else's sentiment discounted to clearance. Talk kept better hours. She did not mean the cruelty, but aloud. He glanced past her shoulder, seeking memories in the darkness. "I rang earlier. I needed courage." Rain dripped from his sleeve, ticking against the metal railing. Pulse she once matched. Mira spoke from behind. "Courage isn't nocturnal." The syllables cut cleaner than the scar on Lena's wrist. Sam's gaze latched onto the daughter. He had not seen since braces. "Hi, Mira." Awe and dread braided his tone. She did not answer. Lena unfastened the latch, swung the door wider, because thresholds decide hierarchy. 5 minutes, she said. Sam stepped in. Water pooled at his feet, reflecting them in distorted triptych, mother, father, of bending away from one another. He held out the lily. Lena hesitated until Mira plucked them, carried them to the sink, and laid them face down like small, defeated birds. Sam's eyes tracked the action, then flicked to the kitchen table. Forms, highlighter marks, tuition past due. The courtroom of tiles still in session, his shoulders folded. "I got your filing. Of course, service by mail delivered that afternoon." Lena had forgotten. Then we already communicated. "I deserved it," he said quickly. "I came to say," Mira's laugh pierced. "You came to make yourself feel lighter," Sam swallowed. "Maybe, but also heavier if necessary." He touched his chest as though searching for weight. Lena gestured to a chair. Sam remained standing, Courtroom protocol unspoken. He rubbed, his fingers missing the wedding band he once pawned. Locket glinted at Lena's throat. She felt its heat, twin heartbeat. "I have a settlement offer," he began, voice finding rehearsed script. From his coat he produced a folded paper, edges damp. "My company's sale finalizes next month. I can pay arrears, tuition, medical. No contest to custody, just visitation." Lena imagined the judge's stamp, the envelope's clang. "We asked for boundaries, not bargains," Sam flinched. "Boundaries are easier to honor if I'm not broke." Mira stepped forward until tiles creaked, arms crossed. "Money doesn't replace years. It feeds years ahead," he answered. Desperate calculus. Lena watched him sway under kitchenette light, a mariner unmoored. Memory flashed, Sam at 22 reciting Neruda over discount wine. Sam at 25 forgetting lullaby lyrics, but humming the bass line. Sam at 28, door slam eclipsing newborn cry. All iterations occupied the foyer now, crowding oxygen. "Put the offer on the table," she said. Sam obeyed, paper blooming between unpaid bills like an invasive lily. He looked at the lipstick ghost on Lena's mug, the scar at her wrist, the drawer that pulsed secrets. "You look tired," he whispered. "Exhaustion is honest," she replied. Silence rippled, dangerous as black ice. Rain tapped the window, a reminder of time's leak. Mira broke it. "Why now?" Sam inhaled, bouquetless hands empty. "Because weakness ages into shame. I woke one night and couldn't breathe under it." He met her stare. "I missed your entire middle. Let me at least see your before college." Mira's chin lifted, scar from childhood fall glowing. "I'll graduate whether you watch or not." A tremor passed through him. "What can I do?" "Nothing heroic," Lena said. "Heroism's just another exit." Sam's exhale rattled. He nodded slowly, as if a verdict had been read. From the stairwell a neighbor's door clicked. Footsteps descended. Ordinary life resumed around extraordinary pause. Sam reached for the lily on the counter, hesitated, then turned to the trash can. He dropped them in, petals thunking damp plastic. Gesture unscripted. It unsettled Lena more than speeches. "Leave the paper," she said. He stepped back into the hall. Light buzzed above, frying moths, and she saw how gaunt he'd grown, regret chewing muscle. He opened his mouth, closed it, then pressed 2 fingers to his lips, touched them to the air between them, a mute benediction. The optic memory of his father doing the same at train stations, flickered lineage performing goodbye. Lena shut the door. Chain slid, latch clicked, final syllables. The bouquet's scent already ghosted the room, sweet, rotten. Mira lifted the trash lid, retrieved one bruised lily, cut its stem short, placed it in a chipped glass. Water clouded with pollen. "What are you doing?" Lena asked softly. "Evidence," Mira said. "That he came, not that we kept him." Lena nodded, throat tight. She opened the settlement letter, numbers blurred with rain smell. Mira touched her arm. "Tomorrow," the girl said, a promise and reprieve. Upstairs Mira's door closed. Lena remained, bare feet on tile that once recorded trials, now only cooling. She poured the lily water down the sink, rinsed glass, left the single flower propped in an empty mug beside the lipstick ghost. White petals drooped, edges brown truth and attempt sharing a stem. Somewhere down the block an engine started, receded. The bell's echo lingered in the wiring, faint tinnitus of choice. Lena turned off the hall light, and the apartment exhaled, learning the new darkness of what had happened. She went to bed carrying the mug, set it on the knitstand where an old ring indentation circled dust. In darkness, the lily's scent grew sharper, intimate as confession kept close. Sleep refused her, gentle but firm. Streetlight filtered through thin curtains, striping the ceiling in alternating guilt and mercy. Each band recalled the crib slats she once counted during midnight feedings, wooden vows that her vigilance would outlast any darkness. Now the same arithmetic returned with stranger variables. How many boundaries equaled safety? How many signatures translated pain into future? Tense? A drip in the kitchen ticked like an unfiled objection. She pictured Sam trudging back to whatever borrowed room he called home. Lily already wilting in some municipal bin, pockets lighter than his chest. The image stirred neither triumph nor pity, only a quiet acknowledgement that stories continue. Off-screen, whether or not the original cast remains, she rose and padded to the hall mirror. Her reflection looked newly drafted, lines redrawn by the night's verdict. She traced the lipstick smudge still visible on her lower lip, faint, survivable, and thought of Mira's property of nitrogen monoxide one shirt. Yes, she decided, ownership had. Then annaled back in bed, she opened the locket. Inside, the fragment of Sam's first apology had bled into illegibility, ink dispersing like dusk into water. She added a sliver from tonight, a single lily petal trimmed with nail scissors then. Snap the clasp. Archive complete for now. Thunder murmured beyond the river, rain returning to sign its own decrees on rooftops. Lena turned off the lamp. In darkness, the lily's scent pulsed sweet rot, hope after deadline. She did not know if she would accept the settlement, whether tomorrow's mail would carry peace or counterclaim. She knew only that the doorbell had rung, she had answered, and the house still stood. Gradually the drip in the sink aligned with her slowing pulse. Ceiling stripes faded as clouds thickened, leaving the room unsigned by light. She drifted at last, the mug beside her releasing perfume as soft as a handwritten ceasefire, staining the dark with something both tender and irrevocable. The wards. Overhead lights had settled into their late shift dim, the color of nicotine paper, when Lena folded back Sam's door. Inside, machines kept vigil, humming vowels he could no longer voice. He lay half-raised, oxygen line like a timid leash across his cheek, skin the pale yellow of forgotten letters. Outside the window, hospital courtyard maples rattled dry leaves. Against glass autumn sweeping evidence before winter's verdict, she carried a cardboard file, box slapped with red urgent stickers, contents still warm from the bank's copier. Setting it on the tray table, she did not speak. Calm, surgical, a nurse of stories about to cut, Sam's eyelids fluttered. He managed a thin smile that cracked at the edges. "You came," he rasped. "I brought your legacy." She lifted. The first folder. Debt statements fanned across starch-white sheets, numbers swollen like bruises, interest eating itself. She laid them one by one on the blanket, covering his legs in paper frost. Sam's fingers twitched. "I meant to." "I know." She placed the next folder, a birth certificate from Marseille baby girl, Anne Holtz, mother's name Juliette Devereux, a passport copy, school invoices. Ocean-wide proof that abandonment was a franchise. "Tell me about her." His throat worked. It was after. "I didn't plan. Plans rarely breed children." The words were soft, almost kind. A scalpel that slid without tearing cloth. She added medical invoices from a private clinic in Austin. Chemotherapy sessions under an alias. Payments made in irregular pulses. And this illness? Another secret. "Daughter you kept in your blood?" He closed his eyes. "I didn't want pity. Pity is cheaper than chemo," she said. "But you paid with lies." The 4-pump clicked, counting seconds. The smell of disinfectant thickened lemon over rust. Lena untied her scarf, revealing the locket. Opening it, she removed the lily petal saved from his 307 visit, now browned and transparent. It drifted onto the paperwork, a relic of entrance fees unpaid. Sam watched, shame pooling behind morphine haze. "Lena, I was scared. Of poverty?" She tapped the debt sheets. "Of truth?" She tapped the passport. "Or of survival?" "Because we have been surviving your absence for 17 years. He coughed, a dry crack that rattled monitors. "I thought leaving you money would fix." She raised her scarred wrist. pale line glinting. "This is your first payment received," the rest bounced. Mira stepped into the doorway, silent witness in thrift store sweater, college logo fading. She said nothing, only leaned against the frame, arms folded, as though this courtroom required no bailiff but her folded patience. Lena sat. "I have questions, only gentle questions like scalpels." She flipped her notebook to a blank page, uncapped a black pen. "What did you owe the Marseille bank?" Sam's gaze slid to the ceiling tiles, numbering them perhaps, seeking escape. "Hatches, Juliet lost her job. I guaranteed her loan." "Did you guarantee ours?" she asked, voice steady as saline drip. He swallowed. "No. Second question." She held up insurance claims he'd filed under her name, a fraud she discovered yesterday. "Why my signature?" "I needed coverage before they diagnosed me. It was temporary." "Temporary forgery," she wrote a note. The pen whispered. Like a saw-cutting bone, his hand reached, weak bird. "Lena, I'm dying. Everyone is," she replied, yet her eyes softened. "Even surgeons mourn organs they must remove." "Is that your confession's premise?" "It's my plea," he breathed. "I need grace." His chest rose shallow. Heart monitor beeped impatient syllables. Mira entered fully now, pulled a chair beside her mother, but faced her father. "Grace costs," she said. "What do you offer?" He tried to smile at her, a fatherly curve grown foreign on his lips. "Whatever I have left." "Inventory," Lena prompted. "We accept an itemized form," Sam's voice thinned. "The company sale fell through. Creditors will take everything. All I own is what's left of the insurance and—" He hesitated, then produced a flash drive from beneath his pillow. "Passwords, statements, letters to an eye. They're yours to decide." Lena accepted it with gloved fingertips of composure, dropped it into her purse as if disposing of biohazard. "Third question," she said quietly. "What do you want written on your stone?" He blinked. "That I tried," she considered. "History favors specifics. Tried what?" "Tried to love right, even when I failed," he whispered. Mira's laugh cracked the hushed single syllable, unsweetened. "Love isn't a science fair project you claim effort points for." Sam flinched but nodded, accepting the verdict. Lena closed her notebook. "Enough evidence." She turned to Mira. "Shall we draft conditions?" Mira nodded. They unfolded blank legal stationery found in the box paper, heavy, watermark like a faint compass pointing nowhere. Lena poised her pen. Sam watched, eyelids trembling. "Conditions?" he echoed. She didn't look up. "Yes, terms under which we grant bedside peace." The calm in her voice was anesthetic before incision. She wrote, "Full disclosure of assets, debts, beneficiaries, signed, notarized. Delivered by dawn. Immediate transfer of educational funds to Mira. Account under her name only. Letter of apology. To be forwarded to Anne, explaining inheritance of ruins. Unsigned by us. Consent to sole custody ratified. No appeal. She angled the page toward Mira. Add yours." Mira leaned over, pen scratching. "Admission in writing that cowardice is a choice, not a condition. Donate your body to the teaching hospital. Let students learn anatomy of regret." She slid the sheet back. Lena reread the list, then placed it on Sam's lap. Initial each clause. His hands trembled, but he obeyed. The monitor sped, alarm blinking until a nurse poked in. Lena raised a calm palm under control. The nurse retreated. Sam's signature sprawled weaker with each line, ink trailing like failing EKG. At the final clause the pen slipped. He looked to Lena, eyes watering. "Will this bring you peace?" "Peace is personal hygiene," she murmured. "We manage it daily," she guided his hand. The nib scratched final compliance. A sound like a hinge ending stasis. She sprinkled the lily petal onto the ink. It absorbed the black, dark veins, spidering flower drinking confession. She folded the document once, then again, crisp corners like new architecture. Sam's breath. Rattled, "I'm sorry," he said, but the words arrived late, missing the signing ceremony. Lena tucked the paper into her purse, alongside passwords and Locket. Archive swelling. Mira stood, chair legs screeching a recess. She touched Sam's forehead, cool, damp. "I'll tell the doctor to adjust your oxygen," she said, not unkind. "Just logistical." She left. Lena lingered. Machine lights painted her cheekbones. Her scar glowed like a stitched comet. Gently she squeezed Sam's hand. "Inheritance is what remains after choice," she whispered. "Tonight you chose honesty. It's small, but it counts." His eyes fluttered gratitude or morphine. She withdrew, reached the doorway. He called after her, voice sifted through snow. "What will you do with my ruins?" She paused, hand on frame. "Plant something that roots deeper than lies." Then she walked, heels soft on linoleum, pulse unhurried. At the nurse's station, she borrowed a pen, cheap blue ballpoint, and on the back of a visitor's pass, she scratched her own name beneath conditions accepted, the ink scarring cardboard with calm authority. The sound, tiny, definite, echoed down the corridor like a lock turning in an old house, releasing dust and at last, letting light spill through unopened rooms. Sparrows were already quarreling in the courtyard when Lena pushed through the hospice garden door, sky rinsed peach and gold like fresh gauze. The birds' bright skirmish echoed against brick, as though verdicts had feathers and wanted the whole city to overhear them. She climbed the stairs with a cardboard folder hugged to her chest. Inside, pages still faintly warm from the copier waited like choir sheets before the first note. Sam sat propped in bed, gray in every corner that used to be color. Overnight oxygen had sanded his voice down to sand but not silence. Mira stood at the window behind him, arms crossed, silhouette carved by sunrise. She did not greet her mother. She was busy watching daylight paint the parking lot into possibility. "Morning," Lena said, setting the folder on the rolling table. The locket at her throat tapped the cardboard metal met paper, the old contract greeting the new. Sam's eyes tracked the sunrise, maybe pretending it belonged to him. She opened the first document. The title line in bold, reversal clause and settlement agreement. Beneath, a row of rectangles waited for ink like hungry plates. Lena pulled a pen from her purse, the same blue ballpoint that had signed custody. Eviction stays, wage garnish motions, the lives they kept surviving. She placed it next to Sam's hand. "Read first," she said, though she doubted he could manage more than the headlines. He read anyway, lip trembling on each clause. Establish irrevocable 529 plan for Mira. Initial deposit equal to accumulated arrears plus penalty interest. Fund. Annual operating costs for Northbridge Women's Shelter in memory of Rose Halloran, mother of petitioner. Transfer remaining insurance to Lena Halloran Chronic Pain Clinic, to be founded at County Hospital, 3-year commitment. Acknowledge. Liability for prior fraud. Waive rights to appeal or amend. Sam's fingers twitched over the lines. Outside, a sparrow landed on the sill, cocked its head as if grading penmanship. His voice stumbled out. "Rose Halloran Clinic?" "My mother spent her life medicating fear with aspirin," Lena said. "The clinic will teach better prescriptions," he swallowed. "And the shelter?" "For women packing their children and leaving at 3:07 a.m. without Lily." Her calm carried scalpel edges. "Call it restitution." Mira finally spoke. Still staring outside. "Clause 5, Dad." Sam glanced lower. Establish quarterly stipend for Anne Holtz until adulthood. Administered by petitioner. He looked up, eyes slick. "You included her." Mira met his gaze now, unflinching. "She inherited your ruins too." Sam's breath snagged. The monitor beeped sympathy. Dawn advanced. Peach shifted to apricot, softening the sterile walls. Lena thought of peaches, ripening on windowsills from her girlhood farm, how they bruised at the lightest touch yet still sweetened. She offered the pen. He held it like a relic, knuckles stark. The signature line wavered. I don't know if I deserve sunrise after. This, he whispered. Sunrise is on autopilot, Lena replied. Deserving has no vote. His first attempt sputtered halfway through the S. He reset, and the pen scratched a trembling Samuel Charles Holtz across each rectangle, footprints of a man whose gait was failing. Mira stepped forward, leaned, and countersigned in bold strokes. That looked like scaffolding around a crumbling monument. Lena followed, her script flowing steady, wrist scar gleaming pale against dimming bruise of dawn. Sparrows outside burst into louder argument, as if noting the shift in household majority. Sam laid the pen down. It rolled, tapped the folder's edge. Stopped tiny gavel. Will you stay? He asked, voice small. Long enough, Lena said. She reached into her purse and produced a tiny digital recorder, screen cracked, labeled VM number 18, the final voice memo he had sent, but never brave to play aloud. She closed her fist around it. Some confessions can live unheard. His shoulders sagged with something like gratitude and grief intertwining. She slid the recorder into her coat pocket, its weight negligible, its significance planetary. A nurse knocked, checking vitals. Mira handed the signed pages over. Nurse's eyes widened at the philanthropy. Sam looked smaller beneath the generosity now formally extracted. The nurse slipped out, already imagining the copy machine humming history into permanence. Sunlight rounded the bed rail, touched Sam's hand, gold on parchment. He whispered, "Tell Anne her father loved her." "You'll write that yourself," Lena said, while the ink's still warm. He nodded, tears leaking sidewise, a leak no. Nurse could bandage. Mira passed him a notepad, then moved to her mother. Together, they stood at the foot of the bed, two witnesses satisfied with the record. Outside, garbage trucks clanged lids ordinary day clearing old remains. Sparrows scattered, verdict delivered, docket closed. Lena tucked the folder under her arm. Fresh signatures fluttered like certificates of weather finally changing. She pressed two fingers to Sam's wrist, pulse weak but present, then let go before nostalgia could steal accountability. In the corridor, sunrise washed long shadows forward, ushering them toward elevators. Mira nudged her mother. "You're shaking." "Detachments vibrate before they settle," Lena said. She exhaled through parted lips, the kind of breath one takes when anesthesia lifts. "We've rewritten inheritance." They stepped outside. Day had bloomed full apricot. Cars whooshed by, unaware that a dynasty of absences had just been repossessed for spare parts. Lena opened her palm to the voice memo device, felt its ridges warm in new light. She considered pressing play, giving sound to the final ghost. Instead, she slid it deeper into her coat pocket, next to the empty lipstick tube and the lily leaf turned to lace. Some artifacts needed to remain sealed, she decided their power. Best spent as quiet ballast rather than noisy proof. Mira touched the locket at her mother's throat. "Hungry for something sweet," Lena said. "Peach pie, maybe." Together they crossed the parking lot, sparrows alighting on the curb behind them, still gossiping about verdicts but finding no one left to haunt. And in Lena's pocket, the unplayed memo stayed dark, its silence obedient, its lesson already written in brighter ink across the apricot sky. Morning unfolded in slow green breaths, the kind that coaxed worms to the surface and promised repairs no contract could dictate. Lena stepped into the narrow backyard with a trowel, a tray of jasmine starts, and hands she barely recognized, clean of paperwork, clean of blood-warm anger. Dew jeweled the soil. Each drop mirrored the sky until her reflection wobbled back, half cloud, half woman learning weather again. She knelt where the grass met the bald scar of last year's drought, pressed her palm to the earth, and felt it hum. An underground drawer, newly unlocked. Behind her the kitchen window squeaked open. Mira's voice floated out, reading the first envelope of the day in careful tones, as if decoding a dialect long extinct. "Lena, I dreamed we were on that bench again. Mira paused, cleared her throat, continued. Words sailed over the porch railings and landed on Lena's shoulders like invisible birds. The sentences were soft, almost apologetic, but the air carried no sting. The poison had drained in her daughter's mouth, leaving only mineral traces useful. Perhaps for growth. When Mira finished, she struck a match. The hiss was tiny thunder. Ash drifted from the coffee tin they used as an urn, lifting on a breeze and fanning across Lena's knees. She scooped a poundful, mixed it into the planting trench, and pressed the first jasmine root against that gray whisper of past sentences. By the fourth letter, night would come. By the 42nd summer, they had counted. One unopened envelope per evening, scripture in reverse. Read, burn, sow. A liturgy of reduction, turning confession into perfume before anything could rot. Mira insisted on reading them aloud, not for Sam's absolution. He was slipping elsewhere. Morphine fairy already boarding, but to teach silence its final note. Listening hurt less than wondering, she'd said, but burning hurt less than keeping. Lena angled another seedling, noticing how the roots searched sideways first, then down. Smart, she murmured, feeling for company. She patted soil, tamped it with the flat of the trowel. In her pocket, the locket knocked her thigh, tiny brass heartbeat. Inside, the lily lattice had begun to crumble, edges turning to sweet dust, even relics decomposed on schedule. A sparrow flitted to the fence, chirped a verdict. More joined, their chorus brisk. Officious, the same quarrelsome tribe that had witnessed Sam's shaking pen 2 months ago. Today they sounded less like judges, more like town criers announcing vacancy in the sky. Lena whispered to the birds, "Room for jasmine over here too," and returned to work. The soil smelled of rain postponed, of cigarette smoke once exhaled from Sam's lips beneath freshman street lamps. Memory tried to sharpen that smoke into ache. She softened it with the scent of crushed leaves. The kitchen door creaked. Mira stepped out in denim overalls streaked with charcoal, coffee tin urn in hand. Ash rimmed her fingernails like graphite. "Next?" she asked. "Later," Lena said. "Come feel this root ball." Mira knelt, scooping damp dirt in a fist. Earth clung to the butterfly scar left by childhood handlebars. Ash speckled the curve, silver against tan. "Feels like lungs," she said. "Exactly," Lena replied. "Plants breathe for us when we can't." She nudged a seedling into Mira's palm. Together they hollowed a bed, pressed the roots, buried them beneath a thin quilt of soil and ghost. When half the flat was planted, Mira brushed back hair and reached for her phone. Sam's nurse texted, "He's sleeping." She didn't say Dad, not anymore, but the syllable glowed muted behind the name. Pulses slow but steady. Lena nodded, neither relieved nor grieving. Those currents had braided into something quieter. "Read a letter while we rest," she suggested. They sat on the porch step. Mira unfolded the evening's envelope, ragged at the edge where drawerwood had bitten it. She inhaled, then voiced words that once weighted like knives. "If regret were currency, I'd pay your tuition twice. The cancer feels fair. It collects where I borrowed and never returned." Mira paused, thumb smoothing the page as if petting an animal too weak to bite. She read on about missed birthdays, accountants, jokes. Lena used to tell when a shift ran long. When she reached the last line, "Forgive me, even if you forget me," she exhaled hard, raised the letter to sunlight, and watched ink flare translucent. "Ready?" she asked. Lena struck the match. Flame bit the corner, raced across confession, curled it inward until words resembled black petals. Ash drifted to her lap. She tipped it into the jasmine row. A breeze puffed through the alley, carrying hints of frying onions, fresh laundry, someone's radio playing an old R&B track Sam once whistled off-key. Mira closed her eyes, humming the bass line, no longer weapon, just tune. The jasmine seedlings rustled, leaves clapping shyly. Lena stood, wiped soil from knees. Drawers empty, she said, more to the air than to Mira. I know, Mira replied, but it still clicks when the house settles. Not a warning anymore, Lena said. Just memory stretching its limbs. She walked inside, feet, automatically avoiding the squeaky board, though it sang no secrets now, just a light, harmless squeal. She opened the drawer. Nothing but cedar scent, dust, and the faint heartbeat she had imagined for years. She placed a sachet of dried lavender. At the back, closed it gently. The latch made a sound like a soft period dot in the bathroom. She washed her hands. Soil spiraled down porcelain, taking ash with it. She noticed her scar, still there, pale slash, yet it looked archival, less accusation, more footnote. She dabbed lipstick new tube, shade fresh clay, and caught herself smiling, startled by the curve. Lipstick on a workday felt extravagant. She let it stay. Back outside, Mira was adjusting stakes, promising the vine support once they dared the trellis. Did you ever think we'd get here? She asked without turning. Define here, Lena said. Place where the drawer's empty and we don't rush to fill it with anything. Lena considered. I thought survival required storage. Turns out it prefers compost. She knelt beside her daughter, helped tie tender stems with loose loops, no choking. Just guidance. Clinic opens next week, Mira said. Shelter budget came through. Anae sent a thank you postcard lined with seashells. Good, Lena murmured. She pictured a French shoreline, a young girl flipping shells, unaware she was sorting echoes. Maybe one day they'd meet. Maybe the sand would carry enough time to smooth each sharp edge. Sun tipped lower. Shadows from the fence stripes painted their arms bars, dissolving as the light warmed ochre. Mira wiped sweat, leaving a smudge of soil across her cheek. Tomorrow night, she said, the last letter. We'll burn it in the garden, Lena said. Let the jasmine have the finale. Mira smiled, teeth bright. No lily? Lila brews easy, Lena answered, patting earth. These bloom at night and forgive daytime heat. They finished planting. Birds hushed, busy preening for dusk ceremony. Lena fetched 2 chipped mugs, poured water from the hose, passed one to Mira. They toasted the garden clink of porcelain. Small but brave, and drank, letting coolness rinse ash-taste dot as twilight draped lilac over rooftops. The seedlings seemed to inhale, leaves quivering, already translating darkness into perfume. Mira gathered the coffee tin, now nearly empty. I'll save the last ashes, she said. For what? Unknown experiments, she grinned. Carrying remnants indoors. Lena remained, knees damp, palms fragrant. She listened, no drawer throb. No unsent voicemail, only distant laughter from a neighbor's window and the first notes of jasmine releasing itself tonight. Forgiveness, she realized, had not arrived like parade or thunder. It had seeped in sideways, unspectacular, a draft through cracked paint, until the room's changed temperature and anger could not remember where it lived. A moth fluttered near the fresh soil, drawn by something that wasn't light but promised. Lena watched it settle on a jasmine leaf, wings trembling at aromas still unborn. She touched the locket through her blouse, felt the brittle lily petal flake, and let it stay, a tiny fossil of what once insisted on being more beautiful. Then the wound. Inside, a match flared. Mira testing tomorrow's flame, practicing goodbye. Smoke threaded out the window, thin, almost playful. It rose, twirled, vanished in the flowering dusk. And when the first jasmine bud finally cracked its green seal, scent slipped into the garden, soft, persistent, like perfume remembered on a coat long after its wearer has stepped into newer weather. Lanterns floated above the garden like slow, deliberate fireflies, each one bent from gold paper into the shape of a tiny key. As dusk thickened, their soft flames disclosed the puzzle of paths between white folding chairs and hinted that every guest, knowingly or not, carried a lock inside them waiting to turn. Lena stepped onto the flagstone aisle, her dress the color of late peony, a shade she once saved for courage. Age had salted her hair, but the scar on her wrist glittered beneath the lights. No longer a warning flare, more a constellation someone could wish on if they believed in recycled starlight. Ceremony platform was simple: trellis, jasmine, the hum of distant traffic posing as ocean. 25 springs ago she had planted those vines with Mira. Now their blooms perfumed the wedding with a fragrance that reminded the earth it had learned new vowels. Guests murmured in low, reverent tones, letting that scent braid through their sentences. Mira emerged from the house on her brother's no-fiance's arm. She laughed at something he whispered, and the sound swung out across the lawn, easy and guttural, exactly the laugh that once, as a teenager, she had withheld from report cards and custody hearings. Her dress shimmered ivory. At her throat hung the brass locket emptied of lily, filled with sun-dried jasmine petals. The scar from bicycle handlebars curved down her forearm like an old shoreline, but caught no pity, only pride. Lena's breath snagged as she spotted Sam in the last row. His oxygen cannula trailed to a portable cylinder beneath the chair. Borrowed lungs, he'd joked during their first post-settlement visit, on lease from a reckless donor. Tonight they wheezed faintly but kept rhythm with the string quartet's prelude. He had insisted on being invited, yet not escorted up front. Penance preferred distance. When their eyes met, he raised one thin hand in greeting, no claim, just witness. Lena nodded, scar glitter winking back, the efficient Mira's former literature professor, chosen for his voice that sounded like well-worn pages, asked guests to rise. Lanterns trembled as though eavesdropping. The music quieted. Mira and Jonah stepped beneath the trellis. Candles flickered along aisle ends, their small flames bowing to night. Somewhere near the catering tent, a phone speaker began to play. A faint audiophile tones of a man's voice clearing, followed by static. The final voice memo, VM number 18, set on loop at the memory table. Sam's unplayed apology. But the volume was too low. Breeze snagged the syllables and scattered them. Across the grass where no one bent to retrieve them, Lena focused on her daughter's face. The efficient spoke of keys, of doors that open inward as often as outward, of rooms built from patience. He quoted a poet, "We are the echo rewriting its name each time it meets the wall." Mira smiled at the line, squeezing Jonah's hand, as if recognizing herself in every consonant. Flashback drifted through Lena like dust motes. The first letter Mira read aloud. The final ash circle pressing into soil, Sam's wavering pen strokes signing dreams he could not live to spend. The images floated up, observed the lantern keys, and then folded back into silence well-filed pages that no longer interrupted. Vows arrived. Jonah promised never to mistake absence for freedom. Mira promised to audit every silence, to pay interest in laughter. Sam broke into a soft cough, sorrow, joy, maybe just faulty lungs. A nurse at the aisle's edge steadied him. He whispered that he was fine. Lena closed her eyes, sending a small private mercy his way, not absolution. Just airflow. When the rings appeared, they gleamed under the paper keys. Jonah's band was hammered copper, reds flickering. Mira's carried a thin vine engraving that echoed the jasmine twisting above them. They slid onto fingers that trembled only with anticipation, not fear, the metal catching lantern light like captured dawn. By the authority of stories older than any law, the professor declared, "I pronounce you co-authors." Applause rose, not thunderous but dense with sincerity. Sam's clap was softer, palm against wrist, but Lena heard it as clearly as if he stood beside her. The jasmine, warmed by lantern heat, exhaled deeper. Reception tables spilled onto the grass cloth of linen, centerpieces of thrifted teacups overflowing with herbs instead of roses, because Mira had said she wanted favors guests could plant. Later, conversation buzzed. Silverware chimed like small bells. Children chased one another between lantern shadows, their shrieks rewriting the score of the night. Lena drifted to a picnic bench under a maple. Sam's chair was already there, nurse hovering politely distant. He patted the seat beside him. She sat, smoothing her skirt. "You made it," she said, voice steady. "Wouldn't miss the epilogue." His words rasped but held humor. "Her vows, your handwriting was in them." "Not mine," Lena replied. "She drafts her own contracts now." Sam nodded, looking toward the dance floor where Mira and Jonah tried their first sway. Lantern. Keys twirled overhead, their shadows sliding across the grass like locks turning. Wind caught VM number 18 again. A few words escaped, if regret were currency, then vanished under laughter. Sam flinched as if hearing them in full, but Lena placed her hand over his. He sighed. "Thank you," he managed. "For what?" "For letting life outgrow my errors." She didn't answer. Conversation could tarnish the grace already achieved. Instead, she pointed to the locket at Mira's throat. "She keeps seeds where others keep portraits." "She's more gardener than archivist," Sam whispered, admiration. Laced with longing, the quartet shifted into an old jazz standard, Coltrane's Naima, slow, forgiving. Couples rose. Mira extended her hand to her father. Shock widened his eyes, then tears blurred them. The nurse unplugged his oxygen briefly, escorting him forward. Guests parted a silent aisle forged by empathy. Sam shuffled, daughter steadying his elbow, his portable tank rolling like a reluctant suitcase. Jonah stepped aside, bowing playfully. Under the trellis the jasmine bowed too. Mira placed her father's right hand on her shoulder, guiding a sway measured not by rhythm but respirations. His steps were shallow, yet in that radius of shared air the years shortened. The bench carvings, the lily, the locked drawer all compressed into a single drumbeat inside Lena's ribs. She pressed her scar against her own wrist to feel that pulse twice. After half a minute, Sam pulled away, lungs pleading. Mira kissed his cheek, returned him to his chair, rejoined her husband. Sam sat, panting, but smiling, a man who had at last danced with the chapter he had once torn out. Lanterns bobbed. Music rose. Lena closed her eyes to drink texture, jasmine, grilled peaches, the hush after applause. She remembered a night, decades prior, when she hummed lullabies into silence thick with grief. The same melody slipped now into her throat, but lighter, as though reshaped by root and bloom. She hummed quietly, and Sam listened, fingers tapping the rhythm onto his knee echoes, acknowledging they could be rewritten. The final memo looped again, but conversation drowned it, fully human voices layering over static, rewriting that apology. In plural first person, no guest noticed. No one needed to. When cake was served, Mira carried the first slice to her mother. Frosting white, center lemon fresh but with bite. Lena took a forkful, savoring zest on tongue. She whispered, "He danced beautifully." Mira answered, "So did you." Fireflies ventured in, jealous of lantern cousins. A child released a key-shaped lantern by mistake. It drifted upward, flame blinking against constellations. Lena watched it climb until the paper dimmed, the tiny keyhole swallowed by sky. She thought of all the locks she had once feared would never open, and felt only wonder at how many had simply disintegrated with time and kindness. The quartet paused. A hush fell, collective breath before final chorus. Lena sensed every guest listening. For cue, wind rustled jasmine. Its perfume curled through the hush like a prompt. Mira lifted her bouquet, wild herbs, jasmine sprigs, peach leaves, and tossed it high. Women and men reached, laughter lighting their faces gold. The bouquet fell toward the crowd when the Mayo quartet began again, stronger, turning the held breath into song. Lena closed her eyes, letting the music settle. In her pulse thrummed dense history, but also present tense, opening wide. When she inhaled, the night smelled of jasmine and ripe fruit. When she exhaled, the echo that returned had a new name, one spelled in lantern light and sung by living throats, and it sounded nothing like goodbye.